Representative Sean Williams was unopposed this time around, so he'll keep his post. Congratulations nonetheless.
Thank you, Lori.
What was your campaign spending like?
A lot less than everybody else's. Not Linda McMahon and not Chris Murphy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Right, a little bit less. What's your take? Let's just start generally. What's your take on the results overall?
Well, look, I mean, it was obviously not a great night for Mitt Romney and Republicans at the federal level here in Connecticut. We, as you indicated, expected and hoped to pick up the 5th congressional seat. We had a great candidate, a great colleague of mine, Andrew Rohrabach, who ran a valiant effort. We expected and hoped to pick that up. It didn't happen. It's a very, very difficult challenge to win as Republicans in a presidential year in a blue state like Connecticut. So we were pretty excited as House Republicans at the state level to not lose any seats, which may sound funny to people, but in the last several presidential elections, we've lost seats, sometimes at a very large number. So for us to hold our own and keep us where we are, it was fantastic.
So the status quo you'll take?
Well, I mean, a few years ago, we lost in 2004, between 2004 and 2008, we lost 20 seats in those 4 years, an extraordinary number of seats. We were at 37 members out of 151. I tell people it was like the Watergate of 2008, and we've slowly built back. Having said that, in a presidential year, it's much different than in a gubernatorial year. When there's a candidate for governor running, typically Republicans pick up seats. We had historic gains in 2010. Yeah. We picked up about 15 seats that year, more seats than any legislative caucus since the party lever was eliminated. It was great. It was fantastic. We hope and expect to do something similar to that 2 years from now.
For some of the big seats, the U.S. Senate race and the congressional race, people say it was the cities, that Republicans cannot win the cities. What do you do? I mean, did you hear some of the message that our last guest was talking about reach out to Latinos and other minorities who, of course, fill the urban centers?
We absolutely have to do that. We need to do a better job of it. I think it's one of the weak spots of the Republican Party. One of my political idols was Jack Kemp, who really felt strongly about building Republican base in cities, because when you actually talk to folks who live there, they align themselves with many of the values that were spoken about in the last segment. Oh, yeah. Strong families, moral conviction. They want to work hard. We want to help them work hard. But the cities have not traditionally been our strong spot, even in a blue state like Connecticut, where you think we would be more affiliated with them. So we need to do a better job of that. I think that we will reassess this in the coming weeks and months, try and find good candidates to run and get that message out there. I certainly don't expect that in the next year that we're going to completely change the tide, but overall, if we take that Jack Kemp mentality to cities, we'll be able to do better.
What do you think about what former Governor Weicker had to say? He said going forward, the National Republican Party can do one of two things: either become further right, and he says really march off to extinction, to use his word, or get their heads together and talk seriously about moving to the center. So, I mean, is that going to happen?
Well, I think in some regard he's right, but let me say this. I think most voters that I talk to, not just in my district, but across Connecticut, feel very strongly about reining in spending and lowering taxes and creating jobs and having a strong economy. I think it's sometimes on those social issues, from my perspective, where we lose ground. We saw a national debate several times in this campaign about women's rights and gay rights in certain regards. We need to, in my opinion, move away from those issues. If we're really going to be about smaller government, less intrusiveness in our personal lives, that includes those issues. And I think that we have to be careful going forward that we don't get branded with that, because the voters I talk to care about the issues that I talk about, that most of my colleagues talk about: lower taxes, lower spending, less regulation, bringing new businesses into this country. They don't want to delve off the cliff and have us go more in the way of socialism, which a lot of people think that that's where we're going.
But on Capitol Hill here in Hartford, you got the same situation now. You got a strong Democrat majority in both chambers. You got a Democratic governor. You're going to have the same fight going forward here now in this next session.
What are you going to do? But we picked up seats in the last governor's election in 2010 because we talked about the issues I just talked about. I expect and hope that we will be able to do that again in the next governor's election. We have a governor whose approval rating on those issues, on taxes, on jobs, on the economy, is under 50%, well under 50%. That's because people are really mad about what's going on here in the state of Connecticut. Unfortunately, that was not enough to overcome people's anger on federal issues, on the national issues. Yeah. Connecticut went big for Obama. It went big for our 5 congressional races, for the 5 Democrats running for Congress, for U.S. Senate. Those things will not happen in 2 years, because the only federal office on the ballot will be the congressional offices.
I was going to say, because although you say people were really upset with the governor and the general, I mean, they had an opportunity to change the makeup of the General Assembly.
No question about it. But you know what? We know, we all go to our mailboxes every day for the last 60 days, and we're getting flooded with mail. I mean, people told me all the time that they were getting mail, and they just stand at their mailbox and throw mail away because they wouldn't even look look at it. They're tired of it. So you get drowned out in a lot of regards by the money that Linda McMahon spent, by the money that Chris Murphy spent, and maybe more importantly than that, all these outside interest groups spent, flooding the airwaves, flooding our mailboxes. None of that will happen in 2 years. Maybe it will happen, but not to the degree that it happened this year. And I expect that our message will be more well received in 2 years.
We've talked about the Latino vote here today. We haven't talked too much about the women's vote, although you touched on it a little bit. How critical is the women's vote, and how do Republicans like a Linda McMahon or others really connect with women?
I think it is critical. I think, again, though, women now in this day and age care as much about jobs and the economy and taxes as men do. I don't think that we need to look at those two issues as separate and apart from each other based on gender. I think one of the things that this president has been very successful in doing is dividing this country as much as he wants to talk about being a uniter. Everybody's in a different class, whether it's on race or gender or income or opportunity. We, as Republicans, continue to talk about everybody having equal opportunity, equal access to education, equal access to jobs, equal access to a healthy lifestyle. And we don't want to divide those people. So I don't look at this as a gender issue or as a race issue. I think everybody we should treat equally. I think our message needs to be equal in promoting an agenda of tolerance and equality on all issues, whether it's social issues, fiscal issues, et cetera. If we fix the economy, we can solve all of those problems. But we can't do it without more Republicans in the legislature.
Is the Republican Party tolerant enough?
I think in Connecticut it is. I don't think we've been branded as being, as they are in Washington in many regards, as being, anti-woman or anti-gay or whatever it is. They've been branded that way. In some cases, rightfully so. In some cases, probably wrongfully so. But in Connecticut, we haven't been branded with that. Again, that's why we picked up seats 2 years ago, and I think in 2 years that's why we will, and hopefully pick up the governor's office. Let us not forget that Governor Malloy only won by 6,500 votes. This state will vote for a Republican for governor. It will vote for more Republican legislators. We've seen it in recent history. We hope in 2 years we can do that again.
Representative Sean Williams, thanks so much for being with us on The Real Story.
Thanks, guys.